All right, guys, we're ready for our Four Seasons sunroom, and Daddy's gonna get a rec room with refreshments.
Oh no, we'll be sleeping under the stars.
Mom, what about the one with, the fun?
Nice try, little bro. It's a gym. My gym.
Hey, Grandma's getting her Four Seasons garden room. Weather tight and still like being outdoors.
Maybe a living room. Oh no, wait, a family hub.
Yeah!
No matter what the budget, the season, or the climate, Four Seasons Sunrooms let you and your family enjoy the outdoors inside. Call now to receive your free, no-obligation brochure from the premier manufacturer of sunrooms since 1975.
More reasons for Four Seasons now.
To find out more, call toll-free 800-928-7007. That's 800-928-7007. Call 800-928-7007 today.
Wake up, America. I think I got something to say to you. I love the United States of America, and I want you to love the United States of America too. Wake Up America Radio with Dr. A and Lou Bell is not a safe space, so enter at your own risk. You will be exposed to the truth, and we will endure the consequences. Now, rest assured, Dr. A will not try to put his brain into your head. I will, however, motivate you to think and to use the analytical part of your brain that very few people want to use because it requires actual effort and actual work. Welcome, everybody, to Wake Up America Radio. And I'm Dr. A. Lou Esposito is on the line. She's my producer, my sidekick, and those of you that listen to the radio show know that I've given her the honorary Naval Aviator Tactical Call Sign of Wench, because she doesn't take crap from anybody, not even the anons or the phony anons. Lou, are you on the line?
Even though it may appear as though I am.
I tell you what, I watched this stuff on Twitter, and I was watching a little earlier today, but Stacy was taking a ration of crap, and you seem to get a lot of attention from just some really ugly, vitriolic people. And I don't get to be on Twitter all the time, but when I do see it, I try to chip in my defense. But just ugly people out there.
Well, people who follow me know that I'm taking a bit of a break right now because of it. There's, obviously over the past few months, some crazy things that have gone on. But I said this before that happened. I said this to someone, and I meant it. I attract a lot more sweethearts than I do psychos. It's just like anything else. A few people will ruin things for everyone else.
Well, it's ironic today that, and you little college punks out there, I want you to listen up pretty closely here. You remember Dr. A from those classes you took, and I told you it wasn't a safe space when you entered my classroom, and hopefully you learned. But today is the anniversary of D-Day, and I put some on Twitter as I was laughing at what was happening with Stacy, a picture of one of those Higgins boats with those soldiers getting ready to open that gate and storm the beach there at Normandy and Omaha Beach, some of these other ones. And I wrote on there, hey, college punks, this is what a safe space doesn't look like. This is not a safe space. And I don't know what's happened in this nation, but we're raising a bunch of wussies, both men and women. And I've got my theories behind that. It's all part of cultural Marxism, but we need to get back to raising real men and real women. Lou, what do you think about that?
I think that's absolutely true. Yeah, it's the idea of a safe space for kids, and especially for young adults. When my parents intentionally put me into situations that weren't necessarily that safe in order for me to learn and to grow kind of a tough skin. So I don't really get what goes on with kids these days.
Well, that was one of the first things I told my students. I'm not going to try to put my brain in your head. I'm going to try to make you think and use your, analytical part of your brain and engage in a rational thought process, analytical. I told them it wasn't a safe space. And by the way, if you do get a chance to pick up my book, Politics in America, Lecture Notes of a Lunatic Professor. When you open that cover, you are not in a safe space. But if you're receptive, if you're not stupid, which, by the way, stupid cannot be fixed, to quote Ron Wolf from Texas, but if you're just ignorant about a few things, that book will properly educate you. And you need to really be receptive, though, to get out of your ignorance. I have a PhD in political science, but I'm ignorant about certain things in life as well until somebody properly educates me.
Like women?
I'm so totally ignorant about women you can't believe. I don't know anybody that is adept at dealing with women, but I am ignorant about women. So I need to get I need to get properly educated.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Lou, today that's a great segue. Today we're going to talk about, and I think I'm going to do this over 2 parts, but next week, since we're going to be celebrating our dads on Father's Day, we're going to do a special edition of Wake Up America Radio with Dr. Ray and Lou Bell on fathers, and I've got some stuff lined up for that. Hopefully, I'll make you feel some various human emotions when we go through that show next week, like I always try to do, and get us thinking about our dads, whether they are still around or not. But I want to talk about, since we're in the process of electing a chief executive, a president, and I've taught several courses on the American presidency. One of them, I invented a course called Presidential Politics and Homeland Security. That was a really well-received course at different universities. We're going to do some analytics on the type of man who becomes president, and then we're going to analyze some of the past presidents. We'll start this week, and then in 2 weeks we'll pick back up with the analytics of some past presidents and how we judge them, great or not great. It's always a fun little experiment that I do in class. I tell my students, go ahead and take out a blank piece of paper, and I want you to write down the top 3 presidents of all time. We go through that on the board together. Then I ask them, what variables did you use in your own mind to choose greatness? What did you judge greatness on? That's really a mind-opening experiment that I do, and we'll get into that in a couple of weeks. But right now, we're going to talk about what manner of man becomes president. And if one day, hopefully not coming November, we elect a woman to be president, then I'll change this lecture note to read what manner of human becomes president to encompass the ladies. But so what manner of man becomes president? Let's look firstly at social background, Lou. And although presidents have come from diverse backgrounds, those with upper class origins have been most prevalent, while most others were drawn from prosperous or socially respected backgrounds. The first 6 chief executives of the United States of America came from socially and politically prominent families, as you probably might expect. Not wholly by coincidence, they served during the period in our nation's history when the presidential candidates were nominated through congressional caucus. One set of elites gauging the potential greatness of another set of elites, and that's how it was back in the first 6. After both of our political parties adopted the National Nominating Convention that happened in the early 1930s, this picture began to change. What do I mean by that? Well, others from less privileged backgrounds began to make it into the White House. Now, as far as education is concerned, most presidents have been very well educated. Only 9 of the 44 chief executives did not have a college degree. Of the 18 who have served in this century, it was only Harry Truman who did not have a college degree. Harry Truman, wasn't he from North Carolina? No, where was he from? George, do you remember, Lou? He was from Missouri. I was just teasing you.
Yeah, he's from Independence, Missouri. That one's pretty easy to remember, actually, Doc.
Okay. Well, I'm just trying to see if I can torque you up by giving a little plug there to North Carolina.
No.
Universities. Harvard leads the list with 7 chief executives to its credit, if you want to call it that, followed closely by Yale, Princeton, Stanford, and Georgetown. Ironically, none of our chief executives have come from UCLA, Cornell, or Meredith.
Okay.
I thought that was kind of funny. You didn't want to really see. You're making it hard for me to elicit emotion out of you, whether that be humor or making you cry. And the listeners expect me to be able to do that with you.
I believe we do have one president that went to Georgia Tech, do we not? Isn't that where Jimmy Carter went to school?
Georgia Tech is where Jimmy Carter... No. Jimmy Carter was a Naval Academy graduate.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I'm embarrassed that he did come from the Naval Academy and naval roots as an officer. He was a submarine man like my dad. We'll talk about submarines next week, but I was totally embarrassed by having that man as chief executive. He's the worst president in the history of the United States, except for two others.
Yeah, well, I can't get into it.
Well, except for Bill Clinton, who was just maybe a little bit worse than him, and the current Islamo-communist in the White House, Barack Obama.
Who's way worse, yeah.
Well, yeah, the only reason that Clinton had any kind of success whatsoever
Newt Gingrich.
When he was living in 1600 Pennsylvania was Newt Gingrich.
Mm-hmm.
And then Bob Livingston, my buddy from
right,
the house.
And the fact that after he vetoed a couple of things, he would eventually sign it if they overrode it enough times.
Well, I can do a whole show on veto. Veto is sometimes it's basically symbolic. And there was a great book written on vetoes. I can't remember the author's name. I think he was from Princeton, but talked about various vetoes. And veto, it can sometimes just be a tool to get more of what you want included in a bill, or remove things that you don't want in a bill.
Absolutely.
And then they'll sign it. Yeah. So.
Absolutely. And not just that, but the Congress passes things that they know are going to be vetoed, but they pass them anyway because it's symbolic, and vetoes are done symbolically.
It's brinksmanship,
Yes,
it's really
absolutely.
stupid. I think, I used to teach my students all about riders. Riders are something that you have a bill, and you write the verbiage up on the bill, and then at the bottom of the bill, hey, look, there's room left on this piece of paper. Let's throw some other stuff on there. And they put stuff on there that have absolutely nothing to do with that bill. One, in hopes that, by the way, the majority of the members of the House and Senate, those 535 esteemed elected members in the Congress, never read the bill. Never read the bill.
Right.
They either have some of their people, speed read, or they count on their brothers in their party to tell them what the bill says, and yes, you should vote for it, or no, you shouldn't vote for it. They're not doing their job, folks. They work 3 days a week. 3 days a week. Miss Stacy works more than that.
It's also
she works 3.5 days a week.
It's also a tactic of we'll never get this passed unless we attach it to this bill.
Well, that's what they try to do, or they put something on there that they know will get the bill kicked out, and that's their little ploy to delay the bill. What happens in Congress now is nothing but delay an amendment. They don't write the bills. They have lobbyists write the bills, Lou. They don't write them. They don't read them. What they do is they delay, and amend. All they do.
Yeah.
And they're not as mad. I wrote a whole article on this. In fact, it's in my book on lecture notes. James Madison said we don't have to worry about a federal government because we, the electorate, are going to elect the best and the brightest from our citizenry. James Madison was wrong, folks.
Well, there was a time.
We are electing knuckleheads. That guy Grayson from Florida, a complete moron, and now he's running for a Marco Rubio seat in Florida.
Did I interview the author of the book Government and Most Everything? And she pointed out in her book that, and Laura Carno, by the way, she pointed out in her book that all of this is our fault because we vote for these people. So when you're mad at government, look in the mirror. You voted for them, and when you're angry with the next president, that because he fooled you and you don't, or her, she fooled you, and you're not happy with what they're doing, look in the mirror. You voted.
Typically, Congress has about a 10 to 14% approval rating, but we love our guy, our gal.
Hate Congress and love our congressman. Yep.
Speaking of Grayson, that guy that's running for Marco Rubio's seat in the Senate down there in Florida, do you know that he just married? He got divorced, had an ugly divorce, just married the woman that's running for his seat in the House of Representatives. Something's going on here, folks. I'm telling you.
Oh, you think?
A little collusion is going on here.
A little.
I tell you, somebody that works more than 3 days a week, besides Miss Stacy, a guy that works probably 6 days a week is Slickery Trigger, making those beautiful holsters at his little place down there. I think he's in Texas, right?
Rebel Road Tactical.
Rebel Road Tactical in Texas. He's making those holsters. He's cranking them out on his assembly line, working 6 days a week. I've seen them. They're beautiful. Except for the pink ones. I don't like the pink ones, but I guess those are for ladies.
Again, you don't get women.
I don't get women. Hey, you know what? Career experience-wise, these dudes that make it to the 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, let's look at that. 25 of the 44 have been lawyers. I guess 26 if you want to call Obama a lawyer. He allegedly got a law degree and was some sort of a adjunct professor in constitutional law. But I'm telling you right now, he knows nothing about the Constitution. But 25 or 6 have been lawyers. 3 were military officers. I think we need more of those types of individuals to make it to the presidency. So 3 of those were military officers. 2, Lou, were school teachers. You don't want to call President Wilson a school teacher. He was a professor and also president of Princeton University. So 2 were school teachers. 1 was an actor. Who's that?
Ronald Reagan, my favorite
Ronald
president.
Reagan.
Yeah.
Or were all actors? All of them were actors in some way. Mm-hmm. Based on what we know now about the presidential spectacle.
Yeah, after the first 5, definitely. They were all actors.
Yeah, the presidential spectacle, they're all actors. We had one president whose job was tailor. His primary occupation was tailor. He made suits and hemmed up pairs of pants. Do you know who that was?
Yeah, I do, but I can't remember off the top of my head.
Was the first president to get impeached. We've had 2 presidents impeached. Bill Clinton was impeached. Andrew Johnson was impeached. Probably not rightfully so, because he didn't want to be as hard on the Confederacy, the former 13 states of the Confederacy, as the other people wanted him to be. I don't think Lincoln would have been all that hard, too, if he had not assassinated.
I think he would have been softer than Johnson. I've always believed that, but when you wage the war, you're not necessarily as hard. But,
I got a question for you, Lou. You got to educate me here, okay, from a woman's perspective. I have no idea. I just was channel surfing today after my visit to the VA hospital there in Decatur, Georgia. They did a great job, by the way. On the TV was Bill Clinton doing a stump speech, talking to probably 15 or 20 people, and touting Miss Clinton this and Mrs. Clinton that, she this, she that, Hillary this, Hillary that. Here's my question. How can Bill Clinton have any credibility whatsoever? He was impeached as a president. His presidency is viewed as a failed presidency. He was disbarred. He cannot practice law in any state in this country. He's basically running a RICO organization, the Clinton crime organization, RICO, racketeering, influence, corrupt organization. How can this guy have any credibility with anybody that has got any sense of burden?
Well, yeah, you've actually already said it all. People don't have any sense. They're actors, and they have people fooled. So nobody remembers all those things about him. For one thing, he ran on "It's the economy, stupid," and the fact that a Republican Congress was able to fix the economy, and he eventually went along after several vetoes. Eventually went along with what they were doing. They had to override him on multiple bills for him to get on board, but he still claims credit for fixing the economy in his administration, and they had absolutely nothing to do with it. As a matter of fact, they fought it tooth and nail.
Exactly.
Yeah, but because of that, he can grab his credibility, and he is good at doing that. I said to a friend last night, they are horrible in policy, but they are great on political strategy.
Most presidents get way, way too much credit for things that go good, and most presidents get way, way too much blame for things that go horribly wrong. I don't think this current president has gotten enough blame We need to assign him much more blame. Everything.
And I
everybody
think
says,
that's true because the last two Democrat presidents have gotten little to no blame for everything that's gone wrong, but volumes of credit for everything that certain individuals might like about what's happened.
It's interesting. They're right now they're in Congress. This is in the House of Representatives where the proceedings begin. They're mulling over impeaching Koshkinen, the IRS commissioner. And people say, well, how could this guy lie all this? How could Susan Rice go on TV stations and lie? They're not doing it doing what they're told by Barack Obama. Barack Hussein Obama is the one that, through his little minions, tells them what to do. They're only doing what they're told to do, Lou. So if you want to, indict somebody, which is what an impeachment is, the man that needs to be indicted is in the White House.
And I would agree with that. And someone said it with regards to the editing of the press conference from the State Department that people are not chosen any longer on their skills and their expertise for certain jobs. It's whether or not they support and will go along with the political strategies. And I just said, when it comes to political strategy, there's nobody better than the Democrats. So all kind of falls together in this nice little picture. But you know what? We have to take a break.
Okie doke. And I may respond to what you just said. Let's take a break.
Okay, I might let you. We'll be right back.
All right.
This is JD.
And this is Stacy.
Join us Tuesday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern for Game On. Remember,
lock up the children and the old folks.
Game On, the home of libertative conservatism.
Where no one is safe, no one is spared, not even the hosts.
Oh, that was supposed to be a spin cycle. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. We love you anyway. Right round, baby.
Self-monitoring
right
Ebola
anyway.
radio strikes again.
Anyway.
Anybody see the host monkey? Where's the host monkey? Where's the host monkey? For God's sake, I need an antidote. Just do your rant. Let's pop out of the segment.
Find us on Twitter at JD and Stacy.
You're listening to K98Talk.com.
I've seen this happen before. There's a full moon out tonight. I'm a fool, but you can't fool me twice. I wear my secret deception just like a disguise. When I reveal myself in the light, stick around and you might pay the price. Enough with the questions, it's time that we said our goodbyes.
I knew that this wouldn't be easy.
Try not to tie it down.
No, nothing you say can appease me.
If you wanted to go, then you would have been gone before now. The darkness abounds.
Music for Wake Up America Radio is provided by Tennessee Jed, whose new CD, Stronger, is available on iTunes.
All right, we're back from that obscene break for capitalism, as Rush Limbaugh would say. Before we went to that break, Lou said that the Democratic Party was extremely good at, what was it you said, Lou?
Political strategy.
Yeah. You know why they're good at political strategy? Because the GOP is a bunch of cowards. They don't have the guts to stand up to these knuckleheads and expose them for what they really are.
Chicken or egg?
It seems to me they sometimes get into their cushy little seat, and then they engage in protectionism. I teach my students all the time. These people in elected office, their number one goal is to get reelected, to do whatever they can to get reelected. So they engage in protectionism instead of being bold.
But the first part of your argument
statesman.
was but the first part of your argument was chicken or egg. Which one came first?
Well, exactly. But we need statesmen and stateswomen in there, not politicians who engage in these little spectacles, raise enough money, and confuse enough people to get elected.
That goes back to look in the mirror.
They want to stay there forever.
That's right. That goes right back to look in the mirror. Look in the mirror because the voters are putting them in office. And who is the GOP nominee? It's not a statesman. It's not someone with experience. It's someone who puts on a spectacle.
I think we said on the show, presidential spectacle, I told you, was going to invade the presidential nomination campaigns as well. And that's exactly what has happened. It's turned into a spectacle.
It has, but the people need to look in the mirror because anybody can run for president, but it's up to us.
Not true.
Do not get into the mechanics because that's not what this argument is about.
I am going to get into the mechanics. Don't try to control me.
No, we choose who wins. That's the argument. And so look in the mirror because it's your fault.
Exactly. Well, back to the career experience. We talked about the different careers these men have had. One of them was a community organizer. I call that a racial agitator. And, of course, we know who that is, Barack Obama. Totally unqualified to be president. And you put him in there, people. And, what's the age-old saying? Be careful what you wish for. You might just get it. Well, you got it. And you have the worst history of the United States, the worst economy since the Great Depression. And he had that economy speech the other day touting the economy. Are you kidding me? Lou, there's 100 million working age people not working. 100 million are not working. And they want to tout that as now we're at 5% unemployment rate. You manipulate and monkey with the statistics. You don't gauge what it really is when you look at who's not working. The actual employment rate is 2%, Lou.
7-year recovery that's not recovery at all.
Oh, Lord, no way. Mm-hmm. It's gotten worse since he's taken over. Mm-hmm. And that's by design. Cloward and Piven, you take the welfare system and you just run it amok, and then you can make the soft underbelly of the nation rip wide open, and you have the age-old communist revolution that they want so badly. Now, you just talked about we elect, anybody can run. Most presidential candidates, Lou, have no trouble meeting, how should I put this, the formal constitutional requirements for a president that are listed in Article 2 of the Constitution. Got to be 35 years old. You have to be a born citizen. You have to be in the country for the previous 14 years. They can meet those requirements listed in the Constitution in Article 2, but they do have trouble meeting the informal requirements. People that think about running for president have trouble meeting the informal requirements, which means previous experience in a high elected or a high appointed office. Now, your buddy Donald Trump has none of that. He's not been anywhere. He's not a politician, never been elected to anything. I guess he's president of his little conglomerate there, Trump International. But if you look at the typical career pattern for presidents, Lou, it's to move up the political ladder by how they do that, by winning offices representing progressively larger constituencies. They might start as a councilman or a state assemblyman and then fleet up to mayor or attorney general or a U.S. representative or a U.S. senator or a state governor, secretary of defense, or vice president. You notice I purposely didn't say Secretary of State there, although I guess Mrs. Clinton, because they convinced that one senator, Daniel Moynihan, they gave him $25 million to leave early so she could run for his Senate seat in New York. She has been a senator and a Secretary of State. She's also going to be indicted and go to prison.
Is it on purpose that you didn't say that?
I guess since I said it. Yeah, it was. I neglected to say it on purpose because I don't want Senator former Secretary Clinton to win the White House. She's going to be indicted, and then Miss Stacey will give me that nice steak and lobster dinner she owes me.
Well, I just worry about who her replacement is going to be.
It's going to be Biden and Warren. I told you it's going to be. They're going to draft Joe Biden and Elizabeth Warren to be their ticket.
You know,
There's
I
no
wouldn't be
way,
surprised.
folks. Listen, trust Dr. A on this one subject. Two subjects. One, she's going to be indicted. She's going to be indicted, and they're going to remove her from running for president. She can still run, but they're going to convince her goodbye, and they're going to get Biden and Warren. Two, the Democratic Party would never give their nomination to Bernie Sanders, the communist that he is, even though they are communists. He's out of communist. They're never going to give it to him. Trust me.
No, I'm not arguing with you on that. I didn't say, anything about Bernie. I said who her replacement is going to be, which obviously means that there's someone else that they're thinking about. But this is what I can tell you. They'll run the numbers on everybody that they can find to run the numbers on. And the person that they pick will be, number one, handpicked. And number two will be the one that they believe is most likely to beat Donald Trump.
And it will rip apart the Democratic Party because you got a whole bunch of people that are, I guess, registered Democrats who are Bernie aficionados, and they don't understand why they are. They're ignorant. They're politically ignorant, but they want this guy, and they will call. You think if we are fortunate enough, looks like we're going to be able to go to the Republican National Convention, the four of us, and hopefully we'll do some broadcasting from there. You think there's going to be violence in Cleveland? You just wait until the next month in August when they get to Clinton and put in, take away Mr. Sanders and put in Biden and Warren. They will be worse than Chicago in '68 ever was. Trust me.
I'm interested to see what happens because I believe that if he doesn't get it together and actually start speaking policy and acting a little bit more presidential, that there's a really high likelihood that the delegates will not vote for him, and I don't think they'll have any qualms doing it because they have a responsibility to choose a candidate that's qualified, and they take that responsibility seriously. And if they think he's not qualified, and if he's doing nothing but causing problems, if they think that he's going to lose, then they're not going to pick him, and it'll get ugly, but that's the way it's going to go. That's what I believe.
That's what's going to happen, folks. It's like I said, it's going to be fun.
It's going to be an ugly July and August, no matter what, on both sides.
Lou, approximately 2/3 of our chief executives have served in the House of Representatives or the United States Senate, or both. But increasingly, it seems as though that our presidents have come from the ranks of state governors. Now, when I teach the presidency, I always have my students read the seminal work in the power approach to analyzing the president. It was written by Richard Neustadt, Dr. Richard Neustadt, who served in Eisenhower's administration. The book is called Presidential Power and the Modern Presidents. Everybody in my classes reads this. And those of you out there that are listening, if you want to get a really good expose and analysis of what it takes to be a president, successful president, read Richard Neustadt's Presidential Power and the Modern Presidents. He is one of the foremost advocates, Lou, for electing an experienced politician to the presidency. He argues that the presidency is no place for amateurs. And guess what we have in the White House right now, Lou? An amateur. You agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. A political organizer, like you said.
Neustadt argues that political experience enhances a president's self-confidence, which in turn makes it easier for them to make those hard choices about power that are critical to their success. But then I often talk about a book called Strong Democracy, written by Benjamin Barber. Benjamin Barber taught us that there are no amateurs in politics because there can be no professionals in politics. What I say, in essence, when you talk about politics, we're all amateurs in the political arena. Nancy Pelosi is still an amateur, as is George W. Bush. They're all Harry Reid. They're all amateurs in the political arena. And I think Aristotle and Socrates and Plato would agree with Dr. A on that. I would argue that the quality of political experience probably counts for more than the quantity of political experience. Consider this. Consider Nixon and LBJ. Both were highly experienced inside the American political arena, yet both are considered to be failures as president. Political experience, Lou, is no guarantee of success in the White House. Likewise, a lack of political experience, in my humble opinion, does not doom a president to failure. It may, but it may not as well, statistically speaking. Now, as far as personality and character is concerned, there's a great book by James Barber, Dr. James Barber, called The Presidential Character. That's a great book. All my students read that, and that's another one you probably need to read. The Presidential Character. Psychologists view personality, Lou, as a complex phenomenon, and it involves diverse factors such as how people adapt to the world around them by doing certain things. One, by screening reality. Like sometimes you screen my phone calls. Screening reality, that's called cognition. Two, how do they express their feelings? That is called by psychologists affect. That's one A-F-F-E-C-T, affect. And the third one is called identification, or how these individuals, these human beings, relate to others. These sort of psychological structures or constructs are likely to be deeply rooted, making it even more necessary to infer their existence rather than for us to be able to observe them directly. In short, personality is a construct introduced by the analyst to account for regularities in a person's behavior and demeanor. That being the case, examinations of psychological characteristics, in my humble opinion, are more uncertain and more subjective than are examinations of professional experience and social and educational backgrounds. Yet, despite these limitations, Lou, many scholars have used, and still do today, have used psychological concepts to help explain why it is that political figures behave or misbehave as they do. This field of study is known as psychobiography. James Barber, in the Presidential Character book, attempts to identify broad characteristics, broad character patterns, if you will, that will predict patterns of presidential conduct once they're in office. Central to his analysis are three personal characteristics. One is character, two is worldview and style, and those two, or three together, are what determines how a president responds during power situations and climates of expectation. Power situations and climates of expectation. And together he said that these elements determine the likelihood of a president actually being successful. Character is the most important variable in Barber's design because character develops early in childhood and is usually expressed in two analytical dimensions, energy and affect. Now, I just said character develops early in childhood. Lou, I'll never forget the first time my oldest daughter, Lauren, was 2 years old. Her character was developed already. When I looked down at her from my 6'2" height down at her, and I said something to her, she looked up at me and she said, "No." I said, "Excuse me?" She said, "No, Daddy." I said, "You know what? You better reevaluate that answer, and you better start running because I'm coming to get you." And I chased her all around the house and caught up to her, and we had fun laughing and giggling. But that's the way it is. Our character develops very early in childhood. Your mama probably would agree with me that Lou's basic character was developed at age 2. Is that true?
Yeah, I think that my parents, my mother would have, and my father certainly would agree that my personality, and from what they told me, I think that either of them would have said much earlier than that even.
You know, our presidents may be, how should I put this? How did Barber put it? Active or passive in terms of how much they put effort into their job, how invested they are in their job. I don't think Barack Obama is all that invested in being the president of the United States. I think he wants to be czar of the communist world. And that's what he's got in mind. They also are also maybe positive or negative about their position. I think Barack Obama is completely negative about being president. He's passive negative in Barber's 4-cell typology. Right. What he was looking for, he came up with 4 different typologies: active positive, active negative, passive positive, or passive negative. I think Barack Obama is passive negative, and I think your favorite president was passive positive. He's positive about being president, but he was sort of passive about his job. He kind of gave marching orders and had other people do it for him. Barber's always trying to say that an active positive president is going to be the best, and yet we had an active positive president in LBJ, and he was failure. He was a failure. Probably. Do you think he was active positive or active negative? Who? LBJ. LBJ was active and negative. He did not like being president. Right. That's what I thought. But he was very active at being president. Yeah, that's what I thought. So not active positive, but active negative president. I think that probably our best example of active positive would be George Washington, but right, you know, maybe not. I think Nixon was active positive, but he's a failure as a president. He did some good things. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. But did some bad things as well. Yeah. Probably the best way to study is the power approach. Richard Newstat's Presidential Power. He wrote it back in 1960. The power approach to analyze the presidency. What happens here is Newstat, in that book, analyzes not the institutional presidency, but the individual occupant of the office himself as one among many in a structure of government institutions. And that's what he does. He looks at that individual as an element within the structure of government institutions and how he handles himself in his situations of power. That's what he does. Yeah. He basically defines power as personal influence of an effective sort on government activity. And then he looks and sees how these guys actually wielded their power or didn't wield their power in these situations that require them to do so, expend their political capital, and how it came to fruition, how it helped them or detract from them being judged as actually a good quality president. That's what he did. Yeah. It's a great book. You need to read it. Do we need to take a break? We do. We need to take a break, and we will be back in just a minute to wrap this up. Okie doke. Wake Up America Radio on WNJC is part of the Conservative Commando Radio Network.
I looked all over, so how can it be? Here comes the wrecking ball, swinging at me.
K98 Talk is continuing to expand its lineup. This means we are expanding our advertising base. Whether you're a startup trying to push through to the next level or an established business trying to supplement your advertising budget, web-based advertising is a solid investment. Thanks to Talk's newest partnership with TuneIn Radio and instant access to our sister station, K98 FM, we give you worldwide access at a reasonable cost. Interested parties should email us at advertise@k98talk.org.
They know I mean well and smiling is hell if they try. They open their mouths, only hatred spews out with their lies.
Hey, welcome back, folks, to Waking Up America Radio. And we're going to finish off here by talking about the presidential power approach to analyzing the chief executive. And I mentioned Newstat, who wrote the seminal work in this, defines power as personal influence of an effective sort on governmental action. And this sort of power is distinguished by Neustadt from the more formal powers vested in the presidency, those enumerated powers written in Article 2 of the Constitution. I often teach students there's a difference between enumerated power and power that is sort of informal power, okay? Enumerated power, how do you define that? I asked a student once at LSU, a Cajun student, and she said, Dr. A, enumerated power means it's been wrote down. Oh, that's exactly what it means. It's been written down in the Constitution, Article 2. And the informal powers are the ones that the powers that these presidents sort of use and suggest, hey, I have this power. If you don't think I have this power, then come take it away from me. And so the enumerated powers are often different and less powerful than these other powers that they use informally. But effective personal influence, Lou, is often a risky thing. Why? Well, because it is hard to consolidate, which you must do in the political arena. It is easy to dissipate, meaning you lose your political capital. And it is rarely assured in the United States of America, where the makeup of our country hasn't changed since 1776 when we were contemplating fighting the Revolutionary War. About 40% said, absolutely, let's go fight this war. 40% of the citizens said, absolutely not. And then 20% in the middle said, we don't care, we don't care. And that's still the makeup of this country, 40, 40, and 20. Even though Neustadt calls our chief executive, this is what he calls him, a constitutional monarch, presidential weakness, Lou, is the underlying theme of his book on power and the chief executive, presidential weakness. Now, that means weakness in the sense of there being a great gap between what is expected of the president and an assured capacity to meet those expectations. Lou, all of us expect a great deal of the president. Neustadt says that everybody in each of the president's 5 constituencies, and I teach there's 8, but 5 constituencies expect the president to solve all of their problems. The Enviro-Nazis expect Obama to solve all of their problems. The communists expect him to solve all of their problems. The Muslims expect him to solve all of their problems. The constitutional Republicans, democratic form of government, we expect him to solve all of our problems, and he hasn't solved any of them. He's only exacerbated them. Now, I mentioned the president has 5 constituencies, and this comes from Neustadt. Here's the 5 presidential constituencies from Richard Neustadt's book. Congress, they have a relationship. The executive bureaucracy, the members of that entity. Political party. The electorate. And then foreign governments are all part of his constituency. Neustadt argues that as these expectations rise, the president's clerkly tasks increase. In other words, our federalist system turns the president into a clerk, not a leader. That's what he says. Now, I argue that this is not personal weakness. It is actually institutional weakness in the face of ever-increasing environmental constraints, which is dictated by the political context. Here's what Neustadt said. The president and Congress are at once so independent and so intertwined that neither, this is the president of Congress, neither can be said to govern except as they both do. They're independent, Lou, but they're intertwined in this cobweb of politics in the United States. They need each other. Even when they both come together, they face other claimants to a share in governing in our system, Lou, the court system, the states, which is coming to fruition big time with this Article 5 convention possibility coming, closer and closer to fruition. The press, private interests, all are protected by our Constitution. And the foreign governments that, you know what, they also help to shape our public policy. This is all part of federalism. All of these are, as Neustadt says, separate institutions sharing each other's powers. What do you think about that? They are separate institutions sharing each other's powers. We do not have separation of powers.
Well,
we do not. We have separate institutions sharing those powers.
Well, that's likely very true, unfortunately. I think that in reality that a lot of the power has just been ceded to the executive and not
cowards.
shared. Yeah. But I don't think that was what was intended at all.
No. You know what? Because our monarch, our king, the guy who lived in Pennsylvania Avenue there, 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, because the president's formal powers, Lou, are so largely shared by those other claimants of power, his personal effectiveness, his actual power is in the same degree at risk, dependent upon the consent from other sharers in his power. Because he needs them, he must bargain with them, buttressing his share of power or his influence with his resources in their eyes of personal reputation and public standing. Those two things really affect his influence with them. If he's a popular president, he's more powerful. If his personal reputation sucks, like Bill Clinton's did, he's much less powerful in the eyes of those other claimants, the formal claimants in our political system. Now, together with his formal enumerated powers, reputation and prestige become the source of his power on a case-by-case basis. Neustadt advises presidents that they must be able to anticipate how these three variables might or might not combine to serve him well in his power needs in the future. The president's power rests not only on his formal power, again, but on the subjective views of other players, if you want to call them that, in our political system. Therefore, he must continually look to the future to protect his power. This is what Neustadt recommends to the chief executive. Now, anything that is so doubly subjective as the prediction of those other views is by nature weak. Why? Because prediction is often wrong. Politics may be the master science. Political science may be the master science, as Aristotle taught us. But politics is not a science of certainties, Lou. It's a science of prediction and probabilities. We can predict things with great probability, but if you took probability statistics in high school or college, it's not always right. So that being the case with formal powers at the base of his power, necessary if not often sufficient, and if sufficient, often costly, Neustadt says weakness is constitutional in our presidency as well as natural. You got to go back to the Founding Fathers. Remember their dilemma. How to balance the need for effective executive power with their fear of executive tyranny. So these presidents ought to think about their prospects for effectiveness as they make current choices. And they should derive cautions about the future and guidance from the present for these decisions. You know what, Lou? The individual presidents need to do the thinking for themselves, since in reality they can't count on anybody else in the political system to do the thinking for them in their way. Mr. Obama relies predominantly on Valerie Jarrett because he is a radical Muslim, as is she, being a member of the sisterhood of the Muslim Brotherhood. She makes most of the decisions, and he just kind of, as the figurehead, he carry it out. I know you might think that's harsh, but truth is often a slap in the face. That's absolutely true. People trust Dr. Ray on this one subject. Valerie Jarrett has been the de facto president of the United States for the last 7.5 years. Lou, are you going to chastise me for that?
No.
You're not? Oh.
No. Why would I chastise
anybody
you?
will. Pursuit of presidential power, if it's rightly understood, if it is constitutionally conditioned, if it looks ahead, serves purposes far broader than a president's satisfaction. It is good for the country as well as for him. That's why we need a statesman in the White House, not an amateur community organizer. I call him a rabble-rouser, communist rabble-rouser, Islamo-communist. Going to have a drink. The president who maximizes his prospective influence within our political system helps to energize our political system. Hamilton wrote that in Federalist Number 70 about the president's potential for energy and dispatch. We need an energetic president that will do the right things based on the Founding Fathers' founding principles and doctrine. If he has energy and dispatch for destroying the United States and bringing in all sorts of people that will help him bring down the United States, the capitalist system, and our constitutional republic based on democratic principles, and bring about a communist revolution, that's going to destroy the nation. We need to get back to the founding principles. If we can get somebody that does that, he will enhance as well the prospect that those policies that he chooses will be rendered viable, enactable, administratable, and have staying power. If he doesn't do that, the nation will crumble. We stand, Lou, on the precipice of the United States passing into the dustbin of history and becoming something far different than what the Founding Fathers envisioned.
I know. I agree with you wholeheartedly, but you know what? You need to wrap it up.
Even a strong president is weak if he abides by the Constitution and the rule of law. Obama doesn't do this. Weak, in my humble opinion, remains the word with which to start any analysis of the presidency. Remember, when we rate a president, we judge him on images of the office that are far removed from reality. Yeah. And usually this is where I get into asking my students, and I might do this in 2 weeks, who's your best president, and then why did you choose them? But I thank all the people for listening to us, and read those books if you want to learn more about the presidency. Educate yourself. Don't be ignorant or not as well educated as you possibly can be about the United States presidency, Lou. Then are we ready to cut out? Are we done? Or?
Yep, just waiting for you to finish up. We probably need to say goodbye.
Thank you for listening to me, people. And by the way, Juju Dombrowski, JD, is back from his hiatus, wherever the heck he went. I don't know. I didn't even know he's gone. But he's back, bless his heart. And I know a lot of people, if they realized he was gone, probably miss him. I didn't know he was gone. I didn't miss him. But he does owe me.
He wasn't gone long.
Some.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? He owes me some handmade guacamole at the table, and I'm going to make sure he buys that for me one day.
Yeah, absolutely. You can catch us Thursday nights at 8 p.m. on K98 Talk, K98.org, or on Spreaker. You can catch us on WNJC out of Philadelphia, Super 1360 AM, on Tuesdays at 5 p.m. as part of the Conservative Commando Radio Network. And we hope you all have a good week. We'll see you for our Father's Day special, and then we'll be back to wrap this up the week after.
Bye-bye, everybody.
All right. Have a great week.
Wake up, Maggie, I think I got something to say.
If you want to work until you keel over, have less of everything in retirement, or give back more of your hard-earned money to the stock market again, then just ignore me. But if you'd like to protect the money you save, receive a steady, predictable retirement income, and enjoy financial security for as long as you live, then listen to this. You can download a free report that reveals the wealth-building secrets Wall Street and the banks don't want you to know. You'll learn how you can get guaranteed growth, safety, easy and real prosperity without risking your money in the Wall Street casino, and how to get the money you need when you need it, simply by asking for it. This is the best way to have a 100% secure retirement and know your money will last as long as you do. To learn more about this method and to get your free report, go to 29security.com. That's the number 29security.com. 29security.com. Go to 29security.com.